economist at the University of Thessaly in Greece. I would like to welcome you to our ESSPIN Open Access Online courses about inequality. ESSPIN is a research project funded by the European Commission Horizon program and focuses on the study of economic, social, and spatial inequalities in Europe. Our research work lasted for 3 years, and it was the outcome of collective effort of 13 universities and research organizations. It's now over, and we would like to share some of our findings with you. I hope you find our findings useful. Here you can see our consortium led by the University of Thessaly and a number of well-known universities and institutions in Europe. Now, the basic research question is why we care about inequality. Well, one good reason is that a large number of population is at risk of poverty or social exclusion in the European Union, with data as recent as in 2024. 93 million people, or 21% of the population, right now is at risk of poverty or social exclusion. This is the European average, which of course is higher in some countries like Bulgaria and Romania or Greece, where these figures are close to 30%, while it's much lower in the more advanced countries. The other reason is that a very small number of super rich people, the top 1% of the income distribution, owns a very disproportionate share of income and wealth, which is about 45% at the global level. Now, the arguments that can be set forward for our interest in inequalities are on humanitarian grounds, economic grounds, and political grounds. Well, the humanitarian reasons are basically that reducing inequality and helping the poor and the very vulnerable people is a moral responsibility in major philosophies and major religions. Extreme inequality seems to undermine basic human rights and does not allow people to live in dignity. Now, the economic reasons are that some levels of inequality might be positive, income inequality might be positive for the economy. However, excess inequality, inequality beyond some level, might be harmful. The major research goal of this presentation is to estimate the level after which inequality can be harmful for the economy. There are, of course, political reasons, and they are related to the social dissatisfaction and discontent that is met in countries that are characterized by serious economic inequalities. This dissatisfaction or discontent may destabilize the political system and even hurt democracy. There are a number of types, dimensions, and spatial aspects, footprints of inequality. In terms of types, we have inequality in opportunities, inequality in outcomes, inequality in membership, and in treatment. Opportunities means that if all people have access to basic services and basic goods like education, health, housing. Inequalities in outcomes are related mainly to income, and membership and treatment are related to the exclusion of many people or the differential treatment that many social, ethnic, or racial or religious group might face. Now, the dimensions are social, economic, inequalities. Different social groups or economic groups have a different level of welfare and a different level of income, or different conditions of living. Gender inequalities refer basically to the lower earnings of female population in general, while race inequalities refers to different living conditions and different wealth, income, and welfare uh, uh, by people of different race. Age inequality is related basically to the difficulties the aged population, especially those in pension, to live in decent conditions after their retirement. Now, the geographical dimension, the spatial footprint of inequality can be international, which means inequality between different countries or different global areas in the world. It can be national, which means inequalities between social groups at the national level. It can be between regions and also can be between households. Now, these different types of inequality often interact and reinforce each other. For example, poor opportunities in declined neighborhoods affect the possibility of households to have a decent income. Now, the social groups that are hurt more from poverty and inequality are the young, those with low education, the unemployed, and the inactive population, which means those that do not even participate in the labor market. They are disappointed by the very low possibilities to get a job and so do not have any source of income. In our project, we conducted a survey with a number of experts at the European level. And one of the questions in the survey was to define what, in their opinion, is an equal society. What will be the basic characteristics of an equal society? So the answers that receive the highest mean score are those that you see. A society is equal when people are treated equally. Uh, a society is equal when there are equal opportunities to all people, when there is no exclusion, and when there is a low variation in wealth and income. And finally, an equal society is the one that takes care of the weaker, in a sense that implements serious distribution policies. These are the more popular answers, and these depict, let's say, a composite or a holistic approach of what an equal society will include. Will include equal opportunities, will not exclude anybody, will not treat differently anybody, will have lower variations in wealth and income, and finally will have distribution policies. In especially the low variation in wealth and policies and in wealth and income is a critical issue because, as we'll see later on, inequalities increase over time in the European Union, but also elsewhere. And according to a recent report, the wealth of the billionaires has increased 3 times faster in 2024 than in 2023. So this is showing something. It shows that inequalities increase relatively faster than in the past, but also we should take into consideration that most of the wealth of billionaires is taken, is not earned, which means it comes either from inheritance, cronyism, corruption, or monopoly power. It's not money they earned. It's money they found, let's say. Now, let's see what is the evolution of inequalities in Europe by looking at two groups of people, the top 1% in terms of income and the bottom 50% in terms of income. The table shows the European Union average, the average of the northwestern countries, which is the advanced countries of the European Union, the average of the south, and the average of the Central East, which is actually the new member states of the European Union. What we see is that the top 1% income share has increased over time from 1980 to 2020 that we have available data. The income at the European Union level increased from 6.8 to 11.13, and at the European Union level, and different regional groups have different differences in terms of the increase of income. For example, in the South, although in the 80s the income share of the top 1% was relatively high, it did not increase that much. It increased only marginally in these 40 years. On the other hand, in new member states, the ex-socialist economists, in the 80s, they had a very low, the top 1% had a very low share of income, which increased very much, and this is the highest increase that we observe in the European Union among different regional groups. On average, we have a systematic increase in the European Union for the income or shares of the top 1% of the population, which means rich people have become richer over time. And they have a larger share of total income. At the other end of the spectrum, of the income spectrum, we see that the income shares of the bottom 50% of the EU population has declined in these 40 years. It was 23%, almost 24% in 1980, and has declined to 19.2% in 2020. So 50% of the population now shares only 19.2% of the total income in 2020. And this varies between regional groups. Most regional groups in 2020 have more or less the same shares, but the decline is much higher in Central East European countries, the new member states, where income of the low 50% has declined from 26 to 18. These diagrams show exactly this. The blue thick line is the top 10% income share. It was not in the table, but we saw it here, that increases over time, although slightly after 2000. The top 1% is the gray thick line, which also increases over time. And the brown line is the bottom 50% income share, which declines. So we have the top 1% increases, the top 10% increases, the bottom 50% declines. The highest increase took place in the first 2 decades, and these conditions have uh, stabilized in the second 2 decades. Similar is the situation with two subgroups, the Eurozone countries and the non-Eurozone countries. You will see that the non-Eurozone countries experience a larger increase in inequalities. Why? Because they are dominated by the new member states um, that have experienced a transition from socialism to free market economies. Now, we measure inequalities using a number of indicators. The most popular one is the Gini index, but a recent popular indicator is the rich to poor ratio. Now, these tables here show the evolution of the Gini index and the rich to poor ratio in Europe from 1980 to 2020. And the diagram also shows the evolution of these two indicators. We see that the Gini coefficient of inequality has increased by 21% over the period from 38 to 46, while the rich to poor ratio has increased by 100%, 104% actually. What is the rich to poor ratio? Is the ratio of the income held by the top 1% of the population divided by the income held by the low 50% of the population. So in the 31% shown in for the European Union indicates that the 1% at the top of the income scale in Europe holds income that is equal to 31% of those at the bottom 50%. You see that the rich to poor ratio indicator in the diagram increases faster than the Gini indicator, and that makes sense because it compares the two extreme groups, the very rich and the low 50% of the economy. Now, this one top percent of the economy, the very rich or the super rich, as sometimes they're called in the literature, has been recently the subject of discussion. Usually, the focus of the analysis related to income distribution was on the poor, how to deal with the people that are very poor, what are their needs, what policies will help them to get out of poverty. However, recently, the focus of the analysis has also it also includes the super rich, the very rich people that, according to an Oxfam report. Oxfam is a non-profit organization watching the allocation of wealth at the global level. Oxfam reports, the Oxfam report of 24 indicates that the rich 1% people at the global scale possess 60% of all the new wealth that has been created since 2020. These very rich people are multi-billionaires. Sooner or later, we are going to see also trillionaires pay far less taxes as a share of their income than ordinary citizens, than you and me. A fact that undermines the trust of people in democratic institutions and values. This has been documented not by some critical politicians, but it has been documented by official organizations as the EU Tax Observatory. Now, this super rich group of super rich tend to get some common characteristics at the global scale. They start gradually to look alike, no matter where they come from the east or the west, from Europe or United States or Latin America or uh, Asia. So they start connecting to each other. They form a global wealth network of very rich people. They are concentrated in major global cities like Paris, London, New York, now in Dubai or other similar destinations. They have similar consumption habits and they increasingly similar education in the very top universities for their children. And of course, they have multiple residences around the globe. The other characteristic of this elite, global elite, is tax evasion. The tax evasion from the super rich deprives governments not only in advanced countries but also in less developed countries of tax revenues and leads to over taxation of smaller business and households, which increases further inequalities. There is an estimate that multinationals are shifting about over $1 trillion into tax havens every year. And by doing that, governments lose about $500 billion of revenues worldwide. Now, this discussion about the tax evasion, the super rich, and who is paying taxes, and what we can do about income distributions and inequalities has led some focus into the issues or further focus into the issues of taxation. The evidence shows recently that progressive taxation can reduce inequality, of course. On the other hand, it seems that it does not affect growth because even if super rich are taxed, their income is uh, still very high. And this will not affect their consumption or investment patterns. Um, uh, some initiatives by the European Commission and the United Nations has shown that tax evasion and tax avoidance by multinationals and very wealthy individuals is not avoidable if there is the will to close the loopholes in the legal system, especially the advanced countries that allow tax evasion. Now, the tax havens provided by governments around the globe, but also some governments even in the European Union, they are supposed to be policies to attract location of multinationals, but what they do, in fact, is dramatically reduce the revenues in the countries of destination and has a negative impact on social services like health and education worldwide. Also, tax havens are responsible for the increase of sleeping money, which means uh, money that are sleeping in a bank or in a fund and are not reinvested in the economy, but they are just kept there as a reserve, cutting a piece from aggregate demand and lowering growth. This practice of tax havens and tax avoidance is so widely spread in multinationals that the United Nations estimate that the large multinationals own an average of almost 70 affiliates in tax havens uh, each in order to pay a lower effective corporate tax rate at the group level. Now, the critical question is whether market mechanism can reduce income inequalities. And there is a debate on this issue, a theoretical debate for over a number of decades, where two competing schools of thought express different ideas. The neoclassical school, on the one hand, indicates that the engine, the major engine that reduces inequality is competition between firms, between people, between countries, and specialization, as well as labor and capital mobility, which through labor markets, product markets, or international markets will lead to convergence, will be an arbitrage mechanism where countries that trade will tend to converge in terms of development level, and workers through the labor market will tend to converge to a similar wage, and firms through the product markets will tend to converge to a similar rate of profit. So competition, specialization, mobility are the major forces that tend to reduce inequalities. So the main message of the neoclassical school is, yes, markets can reduce inequality. On the other hand, the divergent school, which is not actually a collection of theories, like the cumulative causation theory, the new economic geography models, the new growth models, or even the heterodox theories of development, argue that markets tend to increase inequalities. There are a number of mechanisms like economies of scale, the initial conditions that are more favorable in people, places, and firms than others, agglomeration dynamics, monopolistic conditions, and differences in the quality of resources that tend to increase inequality. So we don't get a clear answer from this theoretical school, although concerns are increasing over time. So the focus turned from theory to evidence. Now, another, let's say, landmark in the discussion about inequalities was the famous Kuznets curve, which is discussed in the literature for over 5 decades, and argues that the relation between inequality and development is a bell-shaped one. Initially, as the level of development increases, inequalities increase. Why is that? Because of industrialization in the 20th century. Industrialization takes people from the agricultural economy and the rural areas from subsistence income and puts them in the cities, in factories where productivity and capital is higher. So industrialization increases differences in income basically between rural people and urban people, but also between labor and capital. But this, after some level of development, these benefits accumulated at the top of the distribution start to spread to the entire society. Trickle-down effects will eventually lead the Kuznets curve to the downward sloping part. And therefore, it's kind of a natural law of the economy that the less developed countries will have higher levels of inequality, and the more developed countries will have lower levels of inequality. Now, this argument combines both convergence and divergence arguments and schools, and it was the dominant understanding of the relation between development and equality until the more recent data, the last 2 decades, show that inequalities in the advanced countries this time have started to increase again. So this led to the criticism that this is not a natural law, but inequalities follow the evolution of major economic drivers such as industrialization, but they also follow public policies. One of the main reasons why the Kuznets curve declined is because the advanced countries, most of the advanced countries, have adopted public policies like income tax in the 50s, in the 60s. And one of the reasons that in the 80s the level of inequality started to increase again is because the political climate in this period was in favor of neoliberalism, which reduced taxes and deregulated the economies. So as the discussion comes to turning points, an interesting and critical question is whether inequality is always something bad for the economy. The answer here is a definite no, because some levels of inequality, income inequality, some variation in income levels, let's put it that way, is necessary so that people obtain skills, they have an incentive to work more, to be creative, and come up with innovative ideas. People of different professions, like doctors and engineers, cannot have the same income with unskilled workers. This is something that these differences in income depict the contribution to the economy, so it's a fair and widely accepted level of inequality. On the other hand, inequality can be bad when it arises from unequal opportunities among people and has a negative impact on the economy if it restricts the ability of the poor people to educate their children and have access to health services or have access to financial capital in order to turn their creative ideas to investment activities. So as the diagram shows, uh, uh, up to some level of inequality, it has a positive impact on economic performance, on growth. And after that level, the turning point, inequality has a negative impact. So the critical question here is how can we estimate this critical point? We'll discuss about that later with uh, we discuss here, however, before that, the drivers of income inequalities. Those, according to the literature and according to the findings in our research in ESSPIN, first of all, the existing allocation of wealth and the operation of market forces that tend to concentrate wealth in the hands of a few people. So it is first of all a systemic ingredient of the way our economies work. It's not something that happens accidentally. Inequality is a systemic ingredient of the capitalist market development and will not go away if the economies grow more, uh, if the state mechanisms do not do anything. So markets do not cannot solve the problem. This is one of the findings of our research in ESSPIN. The second finding is that policies play a role. For example, countries that apply austerity policies or increase inequalities, or countries where the institutions do not work very well, and there is favoritism on behalf of the government for the rich people. These countries tend to experience higher inequalities. Third, it is the role of oligopolies or monopolies that control critical sectors of the economy and keep prices high and wages low. And in that way, they contribute to market redistribution of income in favor of the poor, of the rich people this time. Bureaucracy, weak institutions, also insufficient distribution policies, inadequate social infrastructure, and social policies like education, health, and childcare, but also the recent turn of uh, platform capitalism, where the big uh, tech firms that in fact operate like global monopolies and generate mythic rewards for their owners and managers, they of course increase significantly income and wealth inequalities, and of course taxation and deregulation, but also the recent green and digital transitions may affect more the weaker and the more vulnerable social groups and make inequality a more serious problem. Now, we are going back to the question we raised before. Can we estimate a turning point after which inequality is something bad for the economy is damaging the growth potential of the economy, and before that, inequality is something positive and something that contributes to growth. We do that with that exercise with the use of an econometric model and with the use of data for 25 years at the national level, inequality data at the national level, measuring growth either annually or at 5 years periods in a more long-term perspective, and measuring inequality with the rich to poor ratio, either weighted or unweighted. We use a number of control variables as we have to do in econometric models, and a number of technologies like panel fixed effect models for all countries, cross-section models for 5-year periods, and panel fixed effect models for two groups of countries, the more advanced and those above the 100% above the EU average and those below the EU average. This table shows the econometric results, the estimated coefficients, and a number of critical tests. Just for your reference, our findings indicate that yes, a turning point can be estimated before which the impact of inequality is positive, after which the impact of income inequality is negative, which means that the relation between growth and inequality is quadratic relation, a non-linear relation. The models show that when we use 5-year periods, which means we estimate the impact of inequality over a longer period, the turning point appear in the economy at lower levels of inequality and affect more countries. We also run again the model for more advanced and less advanced countries. And the interesting finding here is that in more advanced countries, the inequality affects growth negatively at lower levels. This is an indication that in advanced countries, the cost of suppressing the income of the lower half of the population is higher, as in these countries, the skills and human capital that the population possesses are more critical for growth. Besides the evidence provided by secondary data taken from Eurostat, we also try to obtain some evidence from a qualitative research with the use of a structured questionnaire that was answered by 186 experts from 16 EU countries. We asked the experts to evaluate in a scale from 0 to 10 the different levels of income inequality measured by top 10 to bottom 10 ratio. It's a rich to poor ratio, but it's 10 to 10. It's not 10 to 50. And what that in each case will be what will be the expected impact of a different level of inequality on growth and social welfare. Here you see the composition of experts in terms of scientific background, and in terms of professional background, and in terms of location in advanced or less advanced countries. So the sample is balanced enough for social sciences and economics of business. dominate in the scientific background, in terms of the professional background. Most of them are in the academic sector and the public sector, but significant numbers also in the private sector, the civil society, and also experts are divided almost equally between advanced, modestly advanced, and less advanced countries. Now, this is their response, which indicates exactly a similar pattern with the one we found in the quadratic model, perhaps a little bit more skewed. We estimate again the same model, to what extent inequality affects growth, but this time it's not just growth, it's growth and social welfare. And here is the results of the model. The results are relatively different from the ones found before with secondary data. The experts, of course, the relation is again quadratic. Low levels of inequality increase growth and social welfare. High levels of inequality decrease. However, the experts estimate a threshold where the top 10% of the population income scale has 17 or maximum 20 times higher income than the bottom 10%, which is much lower than the threshold estimated by the previous models. So, to conclude, our research has indicated that despite the enormous increase in income and wealth in the last 40 years in the EU, and despite the vision for a more inclusive and equitable society, income inequalities have increased significantly. The evidence suggests that high income inequality may have a damaging impact of economic growth, and this has important implications for economic policies, because in countries that have exceeded this tolerance level and an increase in taxation for the very rich and the reduction of taxation for the weaker social groups will reduce inequality and also reduce growth. So this finding that after some level of inequality is damaging for growth is having significant policy implications, because it allows governments with more confidence to increase taxation of the very rich and reduce taxation of the weaker social groups, having some confidence that this will not only reduce inequalities, but also it will also increase growth. The critical question about the tolerance level has received some answers by our research. First of all, the evidence shows that this turning point is lower in more advanced countries, and inequality can be a damage and a barrier to growth at much earlier levels than in less advanced countries, which makes sense, because the low 50% of the population in terms of income in advanced countries is a relatively more skilled population than in less advanced countries. So restricting access to the low 50% of the population to adequate health or education services, and also finance to start business. This affects the supply side of the economy and also restricting access to a modest level of income affects the demand side of the economy. And these demand and supply side effects are more damaging in advanced countries where human capital is of higher quality. The results of the analysis, especially the survey, provide a basis for serious concern about the impact of inequality on economic performance. If you look at the annual panel models, you can the results issue a modest warning that some EU countries have already passed at least once in the time period we examine the tolerance level. If you look at the cross-section models, however, the results indicate that when you take the long-term impact of inequality on growth, the warning may be more serious, as most countries have already passed at least once the tolerance levels. However, the results of the expert survey issue an alarming warning that all EU countries have passed long time ago and by far the tolerance level that separates inequality from positive influence to the negative influence on the economy. If the much smaller tolerance level in the expert survey depicts a more realistic understanding of the complexity of the economy than the models do, then income inequality destroys every year a significant part of the growth potential in each country. All this evidence suggests that initiatives in the European Union and the United Nations to tax multinational profits and super rich sleeping money, and at the same time fight tax evasion, is an effective way to promote growth and social cohesion. Now, there are some policy priorities and policy suggestions that various advisory groups, academics, research institutes, or policy groups have put on the table and have suggested to governments from time to time. First and foremost is the issue of progressive taxation on wealth and income. Higher taxes, for example, on top incomes and capital gains, closing the loopholes and tax evasion, and treat in a fair way inheritance and wealth taxation. Remember that we said at the beginning that 60% of the wealth in today of the very rich, 60% of the wealth of the very rich is not gained, but it's taken, part of it through inheritance. So inheritance tax is a major tool for income redistribution, of course, when it is applied at the very high level of income. Second in order is access to services, equal access to services. Make opportunities for the people as equal as possible, which means education, healthcare, childcare, and housing. You cannot have a serious policy to reduce income inequality unless you address these services, these public services. Third has to do with the labor markets. Of course, no government should ever decide what is the wage or the average income or the payments that or the benefits that the firms pay to their workers. This should be based on collective bargaining, which should be encouraged, bargaining between firms and worker unions. But the government, what should the government do is to raise minimum wages in countries where minimum wage is below the subsistence level, below the level that below the poverty level, actually. And of course, with positive policies related to training and upskilling with specific programs. Fourth, policies of social protection, unemployment benefits, retirement pensions, and a number of similar programs for example, for single mothers or other vulnerable social groups, and of course, the idea of a universal basic income also in countries where this is possible. Finally, policies of that have an impact on the structural characteristics of the economy, either by supporting in a more effective way small business, but also business in the rural areas, or most importantly, enforce competition and anti-competition, anti-monopoly laws to limit monopoly power or oligopolies. Finally, policies that may improve gender equality and digital access. These policies, to the extent that they are applied in a consistent manner, in a combined way, and and have a lasting period of implementation, it is almost sure that they will have an impact in reducing inequality and, in most cases, improve growth for the economies. Thank you for your attention, and you can find this presentation as well others in the site of our ESSPIN program. Thank you very much.